The Philadelphia 76ers have changed their mind on the two-way slots and made another move to round out the bottom of the roster. In addition to this, we have another update in the James Harden saga and why there is a funny playing altercation that I can't wait to break down. That's what we're going to get into this video. Thank you guys for watching Sixers Digest once again. Before I dive fully into the story of today, I do want to make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 81.8% of you watching this video have not subscribed to the channel just yet. We got plenty of big plans over here. The Sixers season is finally upon us, and I cannot wait to break down the actual action on the court. Feels like we've been talking about all the theoreticals, all these storylines, and now we have some real basketball to discuss. So I can't wait to get into it all, but I do want to break down the roster itself, and I'll begin with the story that the Sixers have agreed to a two-way contract with Ricky Council IV. This is not new news because he has been a member of the organization, but he was waived just recently, and for full clarity on the situation, we have this of Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer. The Sixers have waived two-way center Azuolas Tubelis to create the vacant two-way spot they used to re-sign Ricky Council IV, according to a league source. This comes after the Sixers originally waived Council on Friday. Mike Escotto of Hoopsite was first to report that Council rejoined the team. So that's why this is surprising to me. I do believe Ricky Council is the right choice for a two-way slot, that I am somewhat of a believer in his long-term ability. I wouldn't say I'm 100% sold that he is that guy or is an NBA talent, but I do believe he is worthy of seeing what this guy can grow into, that there are some intriguing physical tools there. He plays with a really high motor. I think he's did a nice job integrating himself into the Philadelphia organization, that we saw him be very active in the Rico Hines runs throughout the summer, participating with Terquavion Smith and a number of the other Sixers that participated. D'Anthony Melton made an appearance there, B-Ball Paul, a number of other guys that was very fun to watch, and Ricky Council held his own. He looked like he belonged in the situation. This is a guy who spent 2 years at Wichita State before transferring to Arkansas last year. He was the leading scorer on that Arkansas team, which held a ton of NBA talent. Other guys that got drafted, there were Anthony Black was a top pick. They had another first-round pick. Jordan Walsh was a second-round pick of the Boston Celtics, who I like quite a bit. So it was a loaded roster, and Ricky Council IV was the star of the show for them. And they were all good players. It wasn't like he was the guy dominating single-handedly, but he was their leading scorer and a guy who, when it came down to crunch time, was who they looked to get a bucket, and he delivered a lot of the times. So I am glad to see Ricky Council back in the Sixers organization. So for now, the finalized two-way spots are Terquavion Smith, Ricky Council IV, and Javonte Smart. So that does mean that Azuolas Tubelis was released. No idea what is next for Tubelis. I will say, not to come down on the guy, but I think this is the correct choice. I'm letting him be. The hype around Tubelis, the guy who played at Arizona, had a very successful collegiate career. He was kind of sold as a model of a stretch big man and then measured in at 6'8" at the combine. That's really tough because 6'8" just really is not big man size at the NBA level. That we're seeing wings like this that are 6'8". I mean, that's Kelly Oubre size on the Sixers team. And especially when you're kind of the fact is that you can kind of shoot and that you're big, it doesn't quite work when you shrink a little bit in what you are. And for the record, he was listed as 7 foot in college, or I believe 6'11" in college. So a notable notch below what he actually measured in at, and that is pretty damaging to the long term. I didn't see a ton from Tubelis in preseason or in summer league. Unfortunately, I think it is the right move to move on from him, and I am happy with the three guys that will be representing at the two-way positions. Now, to shift gears and move on to the next topic of conversation is, of course, James Harden here. That this has been the story of the offseason, what to do with James Harden, and we have a new report based on what happened at the plane. As we know, James Harden was away from the Sixers organization for 10 days, then attempted to rejoin the team and was told no, and we have some clarity on the specifics. This coming from Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report. Initially, staying back was interpreted as a suggestion rather than a mandate, sources say. Harden proceeded to participate in portions of the session with the intention of joining the team on the flight to Milwaukee that afternoon. After practice, Harden arrived at the fixed base operator airport to board the team flight, but he was stopped by a security official who notified him that he was not permitted to accompany the team, sources say. General Manager Elton Brand and head coach Nick Nurse spoke to Harden to explain that the organization prefers he accepts and follows their workout plan, which includes staying at the practice facility while the team is away, sources say. So pretty shocking stuff that it went that letter of the law. I do think this was a little bit of a leverage move from James Harden, that he wanted to look like, I want to be with the team. I want to be there. I want to be involved. And maybe that is his genuine interpretation and outlook from here. That I think, from my point of view, I think the right thing that the Sixers are doing are trying to get to the root of what are James Harden's intentions. Is this a guy who has now accepted the situation for what it is, understands he needs to play at a high level to grow his trade value and grow his future contractual market? Or is this a guy who's on a burn the world tour, who wants to cause internal damage until the Sixers just roll over and get rid of him? That has been his tactic in Houston and in Brooklyn, and it has worked both places. So the Sixers are very fair to have the mindset of making sure that is not the case. Now, I do respect Harden wanting to participate and being around the team, but this also comes off a 10-day absence. And the one thing that I don't disagree with, or the one thing that I do disagree with in the statement of the story, is they talked about they did not want Harden to be there because it would cause a distraction. I don't think that changes anything. The damage is done. The distraction is the distraction. The situation is the situation. There's going to be questions no matter what. To pull up another blurb here, and I honestly think this is the most relevant part of the James Harden story, we have this blurb from Chris Haynes once again, which says, quote, "The Sixers maintain that Harden's ramp-up is the priority, while Harden's camp believes the priority is to eliminate a perceived potential distraction as the team opens with a tough 2-game road trip. If he's with the team, Nurse and teammates would likely have to field ample Harden-related questions on the day of the game. Also, Harden would be required to sit on the bench during games, as star players who are not playing are now required to be visibly present for fans. Franchise star Joel Embiid has experienced a fair share of upheaval with the Sixers. Rival teams are keeping a close eye on how much more he's willing to endure. Nurse's message to the team throughout the preseason has been to focus on who is there in the moment. Harden has not been fined by the team for any of his absences with the Sixers," sources say. So that last part, Harden has not been fined by the team for any of his absences with the Sixers, to me is the most important part of this. That I think we were all wondering, what is the damage in the bank account for all this? That it isn't acceptable to just pick up and leave in training camp with 10 days. Now, I know the rumors, the whispers, the reports of dealing with family issues, all those things, those are obviously very relevant to this situation. And I would hope that situation specifically is being articulated with these Sixers much more than it has been made publicly. And James Harden has no responsibility to make that stuff public. That's private life, can remain his private life. However, with this specific situation, with your employer, that being the Philadelphia 76ers, that has to be articulated and said. And I will say we know for a fact that that was not by the time that James Harden left Philadelphia. When he first left training camp, the first time that the media arrived back and that the Sixers were without Harden at camp, that nobody had any idea where he was and why. And unfortunately, it left all of his teammates and the coaching staff looking kind of clueless as they had to field questions being like, yeah, I don't know where this guy's at. And kind of funny answers with like oh, wow, yeah, I didn't even realize he wasn't here today. He must have had something to do. So it is funny. It is entertaining. All these parts are very, I guess, funny chapters in just the story, the crazy story that is the Sixers. But it does not equate to winning basketball games, which is the ultimate goal. So now the steps from here, the situation still has to be resolved one way or another. So I do like that the Sixers are taking the approach of keeping a little bit of separation, at least until you can figure out what Harden's mindset is from here. But there has to be a conclusion at some point that this isn't going to resolve itself, and it's very clear how hurt the feelings are. And if that is the case, I can't imagine being kicked off the plane by security is a way to help and aid in that overall repairing of a relationship. So I don't know what happens from here. What we do know is the Sixers are set to play 2 games of basketball. They'll be traveling to Milwaukee to make their debut. I'm recording this video beforehand on that game, and I cannot wait to see what this team looks like on the floor. But eventually they have to come home, and James Harden will be waiting for them. So does the ramp-up process, is it a weekend kind of session, and then he will be back in action with the team once they regain their form? I don't know. I'm not sure when things started. I would imagine that the Sixers are going to stretch this out as long as they possibly can. It is also should be a little bit more of a slap in the face to Harden that his ramp-up process involves training with the Delaware Bluecoats and the Sixers two-way players, the Ricky Council IV, Terquavion Smith and Javonte Smart, who I just mentioned at the beginning of this video. So they will be participating and playing with Harden. A cool moment for them for sure to up their game and have a chance. But I can't imagine James Harden is bringing the heat or happy to be there in those types of workouts, especially after knowledge of all this. I do think the point that Chris Haynes made about James Harden being on the bench was noteworthy, that is a change this year, that no longer our players are allowed, and we've seen this from Joel Embiid plenty of times, that when he sits out, he just kind of hangs out in the locker room during games rather than sitting on the bench. If that was the case, and we know that it is going to be of can't-miss TV, as is the debut of Giannis and Dame Lillard for the Bucks tonight, that James Harden would have been showed on the bench plenty, and that would have been a talking point. But I don't think the situation goes away when he's not there. Like, it's not like there's still not going to be questions about James Harden just because he's back in Philly. The media, and the national media specifically, are still going to be asking questions to each and every one of these guys. And it is a real shame that this cloud continues to hang. Like, as the Sixers try to progress and begin to build their habits this season, that the James Harden stuff keeps dragging them down, and they force to ask questions, and it continues to serve as a distraction. That's the biggest frustration, that it is tough to wipe the slate clean, but one way or another, there has to be a resolution. So for now, we wait. You can check out another video I just dropped talking about the Chicago Bulls situation and how that might impact the James Harden overall outlook and if that could make the trade market heat up a little bit. But unfortunately, it seems like we're in it for the long haul. But I don't see this being resolved very much in the short term. I think there's going to be a lot more of these inside stories, whether it be from Chris Haynes. I've mentioned this before, but Chris Haynes is a very player-friendly reporter that his sources tend to be slanted to that side of things. And I do believe this story was written through the eyes of the James Harden camp. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have to get your sources. James Harden is obviously a key part of this story. So how he sees the situation is relevant to the discussion. But I do think it is a little note that you should put as you're reading these articles and making comments on them and forming your own opinions on things. But I do want to hear what you guys think. Are you happy with the Rookie Council, the fourth return? Are you as happy as I am? Do you believe in him? And what ultimately will happen with James Harden? Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, make sure to hit that subscribe button to the channel. Drop a like and drop a comment for all your thoughts. And I will talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.